Well, good morning. Nice to see so many faces here early on day two. We have a really great story for you today, a very compelling story that Mark Fernandes from Luck Companies is going to share with you that I think nicely illustrates the true power of employee engagement. Power of engagement for organizations and also the power of employee engagement for individuals. It's an organizational success story and one that's been fueled and driven by a consistent focus on values, values-based leadership, and people. I'd like to set the stage for that story by highlighting for you some key underpinnings. Now, the focus on people within Luck Companies goes back to the very founding of the organization. But you're going to hear from Mark an evolution of thinking on what caring for people and putting people first looks like, from an early focus on taking care of basic needs of people to a current focus on helping them fulfill and achieve higher order aspirations. Well, that evolution of thinking within Luck Companies about the employee experience mirrors some broader rethinking of the employee experience context within organizations more generally. This timeline gives us a look back before we look ahead. If we look back to the early part of the 20th century, time of the Industrial Revolution, of course, leaders and researchers weren't necessarily thinking a whole lot about what was going on inside employees. Scientific management ruled the day, and there was a focus on improving the efficiency of work processes, finding the one best way to accomplish tasks as a route not only to improving organizational effectiveness, but also reducing conflict and increasing harmony in the workplace. Now, the Hawthorne Electric studies give the human relations movement a spur and suddenly have researchers looking inside employees for the first time at attitudes and emotions. The focus shifts to issues of morale, happiness, satisfaction. How do people feel about their work? In the middle part of the last century, focus turns to commitment. How attached are people to organizations? What implications does that have for retaining key talent in particular? And it's really only in the last 25 years or so that the focus has shifted so many organizations to employee engagement. Now, employee engagement, of course, is all about human potential and igniting human potential. It's about issues of organizational commitment and the attachment people feel to organizations. But more importantly, more fundamentally, it's about discretionary effort. It's about creating the conditions in work environments that encourage people to do and deliver more, to step up and go above and beyond what organizations might be minimally able to ask or require of them. And I think it's that prospect of increased productivity that's made engagement such a compelling notion for so many leaders in so many organizations. But Hay Group recently has pioneered the concept that for organizations that want to get the most out of their people and help people to be their best and achieve all that they can, the focus on employee engagement, while important, isn't alone sufficient. That is, organizations can't stop there. Too many engaged employees in today's workplaces are also frustrated employees, aligned with organizational objectives, anxious to contribute, right where leaders want them from a motivational perspective, but feeling held back in one way or another by roles that don't suit them and take advantage of their skills and capabilities, or work environments that don't support ideal levels of performance or trip them up with performance barriers. Now, what that means is that organizations that are focused on employee engagement and investing heavily in the concept need also to be thinking about employee enablement, creating work conditions that position motivated employees for success and support their efforts to translate their energies and enthusiasm into productivity and performance. Now, those two concepts, engagement and enablement, engagement about the want to, the desire to get things done, enablement all about the can do, the ability to get things done, are distinct, but they're also related. And from the standpoint of releasing human potential, that cuts both ways. On the one hand, if organizations take engaged employees and they drop them into work environments that don't support high levels of performance, don't offer high levels of enablement, what can you expect to happen? Well, over time, you can expect significant percentages of those engaged employees to either tune out and check out, that is, dial down their motivation to match what they think they can get done. That is, a lack of enablement can be a real drain over time on engagement. Or to check out and leave. That is, highly engaged people anxious to get things done who don't feel well supported in the work environment, they decide to pursue greener pastures where they can leverage their energies more effectively. And what that means is, for organizations wanting to get the most out of their people, a lack of an accompanying focus on employee enablement can undermine the investments organizations are making on employee engagement and the returns they should be achieving from those. On the other hand, though, where organizations can put the two concepts together, the relationship works in the opposite direction in terms of releasing human potential. We like to say when it comes to engaging employees, and in particular keeping them engaged over time, nothing succeeds like success. That is, give people an opportunity to come in, put in a productive effort, leave with a sense of satisfaction, and you increase the likelihood that they're both going to come back the next day and come back with a similar motivation and focus on getting things done. Now, the Luck Company story is certainly about people. It's about helping people be and do their best. But Mark Fernandes would be the first one to tell you, the motivations of the company are not entirely altruistic. That is, yes, the organization's committed to unleashing human potential for the sake of the employees in the organization, but also because there's a clear business benefit. There's a clear business rationale for thinking about engaging and enabling employees. And that's our second underpinning. What do these concepts mean for organizations in terms of performance? There are various ways, of course, that we could look at that connection. We've done a lot of research at Hay Group tying these outcomes to various organizational performance metrics. But let's think about two key touch points. The first being the role that engagement and enablement play in high-performing organizations. Every year, out of the hundreds of organizations we survey and the millions of employees from which we gather feedback, we carve out of our database a norm specific to high-performing companies, organizations that are leaders in their industries in terms of their financial performance. And comparing that benchmark, trends and dynamics in workplaces reflective of high-performing companies with the experiences of employees in other organizations gives us a window into the types of work environments that high-performing companies are tending to create. First, let's take a look at employee engagement in high-performing companies, the blue line, versus typical companies or companies that fall outside of that benchmark, the green line. Two things jump off the page. First, in a turbulent economic period from 2009 to 2013, we see very different trend lines for employee engagement in these two groups of organizations. For typical companies, the stresses and strains that have accompanied the challenges outside of organizations and the changes they've brought inside have tended to lead to an erosion of employee engagement levels. But the trend line looks different for high-performing companies. High-performing companies have tended to hold the line or even increase employee engagement over the same period. Why is that? Well, in no small part, it's reflective of the focus that we see in so many high-performing companies on employee engagement, a focus that doesn't only exist in good times, but especially when organizations need to dig deep and call on the reservoir of goodwill from motivated employees to help the organization navigate through more difficult times. The second thing that jumps off the page is the gap between engagement levels in high-performing companies and others. What does that say? Well, it's reflective of the fact that creating high-engagement work environments is part and parcel of the formula for success of high-performing companies. And we see a similar picture if we turn our attention on the right-hand side of this slide to employee enablement. How well positioned for success do employees feel? Increasing levels of engagement and enablement in a difficult period for high-performing companies, as we saw with engagement declines tending to be evident for other organizations. And likewise, a significant gap on the engagement side as well as the enablement side between high-performing companies and others. Engaging and enabling employees tends to be fundamental to getting things done effectively in high-performing organizations. Now, we can also think about engagement and enablement in high-performing companies by looking at how they come together for people in these organizations. And obviously, that's where the magic happens. It's where engagement is combined with an ability to get things done for motivated employees. And we can, in organizations we work with, generally profile 4 groups of employees characterized by differing levels of engagement and enablement. And as we scan the typical percentages of employees found in each of these four conditions in high-performing companies versus others, we again see an illustration of the connection between engagement enablement and the success of high-performing companies. They tend to have greater percentages of employees who are highly engaged and well-enabled, individuals who are likely to be most effective in their job roles. They have smaller percentages of people who are neither highly engaged nor well-enabled, people who are likely to be least effective or positioned to be least effective in their job roles. They also have fewer people in detached conditions, reasonably well supported or enabled where the spark of motivation is missing. Interestingly, though, they do tend to have more frustrated employees, highly motivated, anxious to contribute, but feeling held back by enablement barriers. What does that say? Well, it says that all organizations, as they're thinking about employee engagement, need to be thinking about enablement because it's precisely the most engaged people who are most sensitive to any barriers or constraints. Others can shrug it off. And high-performing companies with their performance-driven cultures and the highly achievement-driven people they draw into the organization tend to have people who are very sensitive to barriers that exist in the work environment, leaving this to be a special watch-out even in high-performing companies. Another touch point, though, on the connection between engagement and enablement is what happens to organizations that can move the needle in a positive direction. Well, across our database, we've taken a look at companies with different experiences and profiles with respect to engagement and enablement to answer that question. On this slide, we highlight financial performance results for two groups of companies. Companies that over the last 2 years have seen increases in engagement and enablement levels, and companies that over the same 2-year period have not, or have seen flat results or declining results on the engagement and enablement side. And as you can see, the performance curves for these two groups of organizations are very different. Accompanying the increases in engagement and enablement for the first group have been increases in return on equity, return on assets, and return on investment over the last 2 years, whereas for the group that did not achieve gains in engagement and enablement, we see over the same turbulent economic period declines on ROE, ROA, and ROI. So there's a business case to be made for focusing as luck companies has on engagement and enablement. But our third underpinning of the luck company story is that it's very much a story of organizational transformation. So how do you think about an approach to employee engagement and an approach to employee enablement that is transformational, or put another way, is not transactional, is not focused on the process and the mechanics and the procedures of an engagement program, but on the impact on the organization? Well, our answer is you do that by aligning with what the organization is trying to achieve. And that's important for a couple of reasons. First, in our experience, many efforts to engage employees fail because they fail to engage managers and leaders. That is, to the extent that an engagement initiative gets marginalized as something managers and leaders will turn to, if time permits, after they accomplish other business priorities, it's never going to happen. The key, of course, is embedding engagement and enablement approaches in the organization such that they're seen by leaders and managers and employees alike as fundamental to achieving what the organization is trying to do from a business perspective. And that's when the process becomes transformational. And we're going to see in the luck company's story engagement and enablement connected to the type of organization luck is trying to create, the types of leaders luck wants to develop, and the types of work environments that luck wants to create for its employees. And we're also going to see that engagement and enablement approach connected in important ways with the organization's strategy. Now, we've looked at organizations that are high performing but take different routes to success to give us a look at the different types of work environments organizations may need to create or be well advised to create depending on what they're trying to do strategically. Think about a typical strategy typology. Companies that are looking to succeed in operational excellence, low-cost delivery of high-quality products and services with reliability. Think of a UPS or a Walmart. Companies that are looking to succeed based on innovation. Think of an Apple, Samsung. Or companies that are looking to succeed or differentiate from competitors through an especially close connection with customers. Think of a high-end hotel chain that's all about service. Now, the types of work environments these organizations are looking to create may be different. which means these organizations may need to have some different priorities as they focus on engaging and enabling employees if they're going to create that connection to business performance and strategy. Now, there are some commonalities for sure. Across high-performing companies generally, regardless of their strategic profile, it's about clarity, direction and goals for the organization. It's about confidence in leaders. It's about setting high-performance standards and ensuring accountability for meeting them. And it's about creating work systems and processes that support high levels of productivity. You could consider those table stakes for being a high-performing company. But let's say you're an organization like Luck, and you're challenged in a very difficult economy that's hit the construction industry, the housing industry, very difficult. You're challenged to drive excellence and productivity in the organization to help get the most out of every resource, including people. What do you need to focus on? Well, our research would suggest you need to take that clarity down to the lowest level. People need to have crystal clear clarity not only in organizational objectives, but line of sight to those objectives, and have those objectives cascaded down to the implications for their departments and teams. You need to promote high levels of efficiency, in particular by leveraging the ideas and opinions and creative energies of employees in a continuous improvement process. In interdependent environments, you need to be thinking about collaboration across functions, making sure that people are supporting each other effectively so they can get things done in environments where success is a joint product. You need to be thinking about ensuring optimal levels of productivity by enabling people, providing them with adequate information, supervisory support and training. And you need to be motivating and sustaining individual achievement by helping people see the implications for careers and rewards of going above and beyond. And as Mark gets up now and tells the story of Luck Company, and in particular how that's translated to organizational performance and some of the specific steps Luck Companies has taken to engage and enable people in support of higher levels of efficiency and productivity, you're going to see some of these themes reflected. Drawing the voice of the associate in innovation, working at high levels of collaboration, providing crystal clarity on what the organization is looking to achieve. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Okay. Hi, good morning. Wow. Turn those down a little bit. I can't even see y'all. How y'all? Everybody awake? Good. It's hard to see. So I'm Mark. I'm with Luck Companies. A lot of people confuse Mark and I as two brothers with the same first name, but we're not. This is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to tell a little story about our company, who we are, what we do, and its relation to engagement, enablement, associate passion. To set the stage, well, actually, one thing I need help with, I usually never speak on stage, so anybody in the front, if I get too close to the edge, I suffer a little bit from adult ADD, don't let me go over the edge. These things are going to make me crazy, so I might get caught up in all the screens, but I'll promise you I'll get back to you at some point. So who are we? Luck Companies. We are, this is our 90th year. We are a family-owned, family-run, third generation. We say construction materials business, but our predominant product is construction aggregates. Basically, we make little rocks out of big rocks. Any Fred Flintstone fans? Look at the one in the back. Me, that's us. You know, Charlie Luck, third gen owners in the front here. You can kind of think of him as Fred and me as Barney, maybe. But that's really who we are. Okay. What we also are is predominantly blue collar. Right. The largest majority of our workforce works in the plants, in the quarries, you know, driving big Cat equipment, running the facilities, and that kind of makes for an interesting story because you really wouldn't think that an organization built like us would be ones that would take really the soft skill side, leadership and people to heart. So we're not kind of an obvious choice to be on this stage. Probably more importantly, 20, 25 years ago, I'd have been the last guy you'd have thought would be on the stage talking about our love for our associates. I'm a self-proclaimed recovering jerk. I don't know if any of y'all are out there. Recovering is key, okay? I do, I'm always going to these executive shrinks to see what kind of help I can get. And one of them said to me one time, he said, are you aware that you have adult ADD? And I said, really? Tell me something I don't know. So when you think about someone who's of recovering jerk, with attention deficit disorder, that doesn't bode well for, right, step one, present moment awareness. Spend half my time on the clueless bus. My time in the company, I had an interesting start. So you got to go back to 1989. I graduated from college, I think, in 1985. I wasn't a good student, but what I was a nationally ranked power lifter. So you got to picture this with 80 more pounds. Okay, so I was 260 pounds. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and my stomping grounds were South Philly, Camden, New Jersey, all those lovely vacation spots that people love to go to, and raised pretty rough, right? Pretty rough. So I go to college for an extended period of time, spend too much time in the gym, get out in '85, and continued on my career path of being a bouncer, a bodyguard for the bands that used to come to Raleigh, Bruce Springsteen, Boston, and I became a stonemason because I couldn't keep a real job, and there was a guy I worked out within the gym that was a stonemason. So imagine that call home to mom and dad, right? Hey, I'm mixing mud after 5.5 years of school. Finally, in '89, I get a job with this group called Luck Stone. We're called Luck Stone back in the day. And I go to work at a stone center. I think I was an inside sales guy. And sometime during the course of my first year, probably 9 months in, I was still really big and really mean. And something upset me in the stone center, and I punched 3 big holes in the sheetrock wall, and I quit, walked out. Once again, right? Great career move. I don't advise that one. And I get a call from a bud, Charlie Luck. I didn't know him. I'd never met him. I'm at home. Phone rings at home. I pick it up. Says, Mark, Charlie Luck. It's like, wow. Hi. He said, this would be 1990 now. He said, hey, I heard you got frustrated today. Like, really? What would be your first clue? So he says, hey, and this is a little bit of window into Charlie's soul, right? He said, I want to come up and see you today. Never met him before. He had never met me before, but he wanted to come see me. So I said, why not? So put on my cowboy boots, flannel shirts, because that's all I could wear. And this day is so memorable for me 23 years later, because I remember walking back in the office, and Charlie, you'll meet him later. He looks young now. Back then, he's really young, right? And he's half my size. So I walk in the door. Here's this little guy, big old shiny forehead, big southern boy smile. He's like, hi, I'm Charlie Luck. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be painful. So where does all this start? Charlie and I, we go in the back room, and we sit down across from each other, 2 chairs, and Charlie closes the door, and he sits down in front of me, and he looks at me, and the first thing Charlie Luck ever said to me, he said, all right, first of all, you can't be tearing up my shit. I said, sorry, Charlie, I spend, y'all, man, like the next 4 years, Charlie's sending me to all these executive shrink places, and I'm laying on floors in dark rooms, and Yanni's playing over the stereo, and God, some shrink whispering in my ear about my childhood. Did all that, nothing changed, nothing changed. So we'll come back to that story in a little bit. So this is us, contact information below. Love to hear from you, by the way. So before, we got about 26 minutes to talk about 90 years, but I really want to start out by really letting you all see today what it is that we believe in. Beliefs are really, really important. A lot of the research is being done on beliefs right now. There's a great book written a while ago called Moral Intelligence by these 2 guys, Lennox and Keel. And they define beliefs as sort of our executive summary of the world, right? It's just kind of how we see things. Ultimately, our beliefs, our values basically are born out of our beliefs, but they're these really deep, deep convictions that we have that we'll call on really like when times are tough. So those are beliefs. So I think, you know, in the work that we do now, this is one of the first things. If we had more time, I'd ask y'all 10 questions before I'd even start talking to you. Because I want to know what's important to you and what you believe, and I want to see the world a little bit through your eyes. Well, this is looking at the world through our eyes. And what this can do for you is inform the rest of the deck and the conversation, because you need to know this is what we believe in. Couple things. You know, number one, the extraordinary potential of all 7 billion extraordinary creatures that walk the earth. All. Okay? And that's a fact, right? You can look it up, you can research it, and there's these great, great testaments that say things like 9,999 out of 10,000 babies are born geniuses, and then we spend the rest of their lives convincing them that they're not. Okay? And it's unlimited and it's untapped in most human beings. So think about that. I don't know how many associates, employees, family members. There's hundreds of thousands represented in the room right now. So I can say to you 200, y'all are exceptional. And everybody in your world around you is also. Right? And that's a fact. The second thing is, and this is a lot of the work that we do with Hay and a big belief of theirs, we are big believers in leadership. Leadership as a force multiplier, words from the Hay Group, right? That when activated, look what it says, ignites the potential in individuals and organizations. One thing I want you to know about our company, we're 850 strong. It's not a lot of us, okay? But please know this, we're trying to develop 850 leaders, not 150 at the top. We believe leadership is a choice, right? Not a title or position. Conscious choice to work first on yourself and then help those around you. So when Mark talked about how do you get engagement, enablement, all the way down in the organization, our frontline guys and gals that are driving those loaders and driving those haul trucks, they get a lot of the same development that we do at the C-suite. They've taken values assessments, all right? They get trained on that. They've all done insights. That's what the personality survey that we use. If you go to our quarries, unbeknownst to us, this started up in Northern Virginia, our guys on the front lines have actually gone as far as putting 2 color dots on their hat so that all the other guys know what their primary and secondary colors are from an insights perspective. That's getting it down in the organization, okay? Trying to develop 850 leaders. The third one we believe is the tipping point for leadership. And that's this idea that, right, so now you know there's 200 leaders, 250 in the room right now. You have to decide that you're going to go first, okay? Personally, I think it's the biggest issue with civility today. Big issue, simple solution. Who's going to wake up in the morning and go, you know what, I'm okay. I don't need anything. And how then can I turn around and help other people be okay versus what the world owes me? Here's a really, really simple. I don't have a lot of time to do these today, but by a show of hands, I'm going to cover the light. Now watch this. How many of you all out there have good and bad days? Raise your hand. Good and bad days. Hand high. Okay, it's everybody. How many recovering jerks in the crowd like me that love to share your bad days with as many people as you can? Hold your hand up high. 1? Come on, there you go. But watch how easy this is. Okay, and this is what we try to do. We try to keep this really simple, quite honestly. I'll ask you, what happens around you when you're having a good day? What happens? Good stuff, contagious? Do people around you have good days? Can't see you. Yeah, right? So question number 2, who decides whether you're going to have a good day or not? We're done, aren't we? Right? That's really all we do in Luck Companies. We try to help 850 associates, and they try to help each other have more good days and bad days. We know it's a choice. Okay? And yet so many of us, right, walk around life kicking the can down the road, woe is me. That's a choice too. But when you get a company or an organization or a family or a team or whatever, and someone on that team goes, you know what? I'm going to get up most days, human beings, not perfect beings, and have a good day. Watch what happens to the team. Smile, y'all. Smile, right? And watch people smile around you. Primal leadership, Emotions are contagious. People catch them like a cold. So that's a big belief of ours. Freedom and power to choose, we already talked about that. One of the most glorious gifts for human beings, we get to decide. Right? I love when I'm having this conversation with the Quarry gang. A lot of times it's guys. And down Boscobel a few months ago, talking about this side. We do this with them. And we're talking to them about choices. So I asked those guys a question. I said, how many of y'all are married? Of course, they all raised their hand. And I said, how many of y'all believe your wives can make you do something? Of course, they all raised their hand. So that's interesting. And I said, and I tell them, I go on to say that's actually not true. And there was a little guy down at Boscobel, Charlie, I can't remember his name, front row, young. And he looks at me and goes, Mark, you don't know my old lady. I said, whoa, hang on a minute. Hold on a minute. And so talked to him a little bit. I said, partner, let me ask. I said, how long you been married? He said, 1 month. I gave him that 1-800 phone number, right? I said, this is above my pay grade. Last thing, right? I talked at the beginning, my struggle, keys to the kingdom. Right? Keys to the kingdom. Nebo. Have the life you want by being present in the life you have. My God, we go through life, right? And we're all doing this, and our hair's on fire first thing in the morning, and it's smoldering when we go to bed at night. We get up the next day, and it's lather, rinse, repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. Slow it down. Be mindful, because look what can happen, right? When you get a little more purposeful about your life, your values, which is the glorious part of you, will come out. Your performance will be much, much better. You'll be more present in the task. And you know, what a horrible thing, appreciating this moment in life. It's a text I sent Charlie this morning, because we're always going 90 miles an hour. I said, boss, next couple hours, enjoy it, man. Quiet that brain down and let's have some fun. So this is us. This is the way we look at the world. How we got here, I'm going to have to tell this story pretty quick. Got to wind back the clock. 1923, Charlie's granddad starts the company. One guy, 25 years old, 6 employees, couple mules, right? And they went to work making little rocks out of big rocks. But there was something uniquely different about Charles Luck Jr. And that was that he did things like, what happened 5 years later, 1928? What happened? Depression, right? And it is written that Charlie's granddad, when that thing hit, he went to his associates, he said, let me be real clear about something. You're going to get paid first. Told him that. Times got worse, right? And Mr. Luck bought a railroad car and brought it to the quarry and put a kitchen in it so that he could start making meals for his 14 guys at that time. Okay? He had a belief, right? Do right by your people and they'll do right by you. And that was really unorthodox back in that command and control era, Mark, right? Charlie's dad, still alive today, one of the greatest human beings to ever walk the earth. He comes along in 1955 and he coins the phrase, we care. Okay, and he plasters it on every truck and on every sign. And while, as Mark described, Mr. Luck, Charles Luck Jr. was kind of taking care of basic needs, Charles III started bringing in relationships. He started bringing in love. He started bringing in esteem into the equation. And he knew all of us. And he shook our hand twice a year, no matter where we were. And he knew your family. And that was the one question he always asked, how is your family? My partner Charlie takes over 1995, company president. He was young. For some strange reason, he had made me a vice president 2 years prior. He said he had to, because everywhere I went, I was leaving this long trail of dead people, so he kept promoting me. So we kind of take over. Long before that, Charlie knew a couple things, right? He knew he was born in a pretty good place, right? And I'm among adults here. Charlie will tell you he's a member of the Lucky Sperm and Egg Club. But he also knew to those who much is given, much is expected. And it wasn't long that he was into his career that he said, man, why do I get to be Charlie Luck? Literally thinking about these things. And then it became his mission early on to help us, as he described it, achieve our wildest dreams, long before we started our values journey. So we take off 1995. By 2002, 2003, we were making money like crazy. We grew the company like crazy. We went from 300 associates to 1,200. Sales were way up, cash flow up, and we thought we were Harvard smart, right? Charlie was a NASCAR driver, so you had a bouncer, a NASCAR driver, Harvard smart. For all y'all HR folks, our HR person at the time was also our airplane pilot, so that ought to be a clue. Wheels come off, we become as dysfunctional as an organization. We lost our way, okay? We called Caterpillar up in Peoria for help. They introduced us to this company, Holt Cat in Texas. They sent out their version of me, a gentleman named Guy Klumpner. He comes to us in January 2009, asks us to get out a piece of paper, write down everything we wanted to change about the company. And I got out a pad, because I was still a jerk back then. And boy, were we ripping, right? CFO can't add, Charlie's dad's old. I mean, all of us, not just me. 7 minutes in, Guy says, put your pen down. And he asks us the question, y'all, that really changed the course of history for the company, changed our lives as officers, our family members, our stakeholders, and now have us telling the story all around the world. And the question he asked, after he asked us what we wanted to change about the company, his second question was, how many of you wrote down you? And how many of us do you think did? 0, right? CEO's disease, it's called. So that's how this thing gets started. We go behind doors for 18 months, okay? And this is really the first time we start thinking about applying science to our obsession about our associates. We had never been down this path before. We had never really thought about our values, okay? But a couple things changed. Over 18 months, we didn't come out to the company. We wrote our values. So we emerged 18 months with our values in our hand, and for the first time in our careers, looking in mirrors versus looking out windshields as leaders. And man, is that hard. Looking in mirrors versus looking out windshields. And here are our values, and you know what, y'all? It doesn't matter what they are. Just have them, because they are such keys to the kingdom, as long as they are more than just words on a wall, okay? But we have values, we have outcome statements, and we have behaviors. We amp up the science a little more. These become part of our performance reviews, and this is the first time we engage with, hey, because we're looking in mirrors and we need some help, and our first assessment, Mark, was ECI with y'all. So now we're starting to get a little bit of information about who we are as leaders, and performance reviews, are we walking the talk? Y'all, in 10 years, more than just words on a wall, Charlie and I have walked 10 officers out of our company. And remember, not because they weren't absolutely extraordinary human beings. What they valued was simply different than what we valued, and it showed up in their behaviors. And we'd tell them we loved them to death, but we told them this obviously wasn't their dance floor. Got it. 2008, got to go a little quicker here. Our world comes to an end again, right, in fall. Wall Street goes kaput. Construction industry goes to hell in a handbasket, y'all. Our sales dropped 60% overnight. We had to reduce our workforce for the first time in 80 years. Charlie gets sick and almost died. All this is going on in a 2-month period. It was frightening. I didn't talk to my partner for 3 months. He was cut off from us. We emerged from this. So what did we do? We did the only thing we knew how to do, and that was go back to what we knew, and that was our people, leadership, and dig in even deeper on that subject. That's what we went back to, okay? And that's when we learned about meaning and purpose and how human beings want to make a difference in the world, okay? That's what we started understanding, reading things like Man's Search for Meaning. What is the mission, okay? And we knew that could be something new for us to anchor our work in. Late 2009, we come out with this mission statement, and this is the one we have today. It's nothing about rocks. It's nothing about profitability. This is the difference we want to make in the world, okay? We know human potential is a condition, and it's extraordinary in all people. We'll talk about values-based leadership, something that we're working on, that we designed. And we're sharing this story globally because we believe in it so much, and we really hope that someday, right, we hope that someday the people everywhere can be impacted by leadership at a higher level. This is our leader. It's not the leader. But we designed this type of leader, and we selected competencies specifically to find and develop leaders who can find their voice first, in Covey's words, right? Live, work, and lead aligned to their own core values, principles, beliefs, and purpose, and then in turn help others do the same, ignite potential. And we've been building and building on this leader for the last 5 years. This is how we monetize it, okay? We got this usually backwards from most companies. Follow us around, come to Goochland, Virginia, where we are, okay? I think population 14,000. We start every conversation with our associates, hi, how are you? How are you doing? We check them for what we call straight and beautiful versus tilt. Long before we say, what are the sales, what's the productivity? We go after the heart first. We use our values as common ground for us, and we exercise that leadership point of view. Find my voice, and then help them find theirs. And from there, that's how we get after engagement. And in a world where you hear numbers as low as 19, 20%, there's some abysmal engagement numbers out there. Hay Group reports higher because they work with companies who do this type of work. Our engagement score is 88 or 89%. We just got ours back, okay? And then guess what follows? The money, right? Because we are a for-profit company. Some people wonder sometimes. But we do good, make a difference in our lives of our associates, to do well, make money. Now we really amp up the science, okay? We're deep in it now, 12 years in, okay? And really what we're trying to do is help our leaders, all 850 of them, really think about 3 things. Who are they on the inside? And we use assessments to help them understand what their personality is, what their values are, right? How are they showing up on the outside, right? Leadership styles, okay? 360s. And then what impact are they having on those around them? AES, climate surveys. Those 3 things, over and over, okay? So you can see how they work across that entire, right, spectrum of starting with your mission, vision, and values and ending with performance outcomes. But we are really, really applying science all up and down that spectrum, helping our folks, not using them as weapons, but using them as information. Where are we today? We never show this, but I figured among y'all, I show you these numbers with a sincere amount of humbleness, okay? But the doing good part, 97, 98% participation in our surveys every year. Engagement and enablement scores in the 85 to 89% range, 4 years now. Employee effectiveness, 81%, okay? And low ineffectiveness. And then look at the doing well. We're killing it financially. Okay, we're generating more cash now on half the volume that we generated on a few years back. And we haven't changed anything other than love our associates to death, make meaning for them, right? Allow them to make a difference in the world, and then apply the science. Safety's better, okay? And when we look at our industry competitors, we're doing quite fine. So in short, I'll take you back. You know, y'all, my first aha through all those shrinks, I went down to North Carolina. I sat with this guy named Dr. Bell. I was still big. I was still a jerk. Nothing was getting much better. But one of the things my mama, who's in heaven, little Italian lady, meaner than crap, we get this stuff honestly, right? You know, one of the things she did teach me was respect your elders. So I went to see this guy in North Carolina, Dr. Bell, and he's like 100 years old. And I'm no better. I'm early 30s. Charlie's hanging in there with me. And we spent 2 days together. At the end of the second day, we sit on a bench. And he said, son, let me tell you how all this is going to play out for you. He said, you're going to have a really big house someday. Thinking, well, that's a good part of the story. House sitting up on a hill overlooking all the other houses, right? Shiny cars in the garage. And he said, Mark, look at me. And I looked at him, and he said, Mark, there's not going to be a damn person in that house with you. I was like, God. That was my first wake-up call, right? It's a mirror, not a windshield. And I'll work the rest of my life. I wear all kind of jangly bracelets and stuff to remind me that the difference I want to make in the world starts right here. Okay, so y'all here to work on your companies, right? Remember 3 things: love them to death, right? Give them a chance to make meaning and make a difference, and then apply all the goodness of what you know. But most importantly, get up every morning, stare yourself down in the mirror, and go, right here, right? That's where it starts. So I'm done. We got a few minutes. Mark, you want to come back up? Thanks, y'all.
Thanks so much, Mark. Before we open it up to questions, I'd just like to pose a final thought for you. You know, some of you may have been listening to Mark and thinking, boy, sounds like a different sort of company. And it is. You might be asking yourself, how do I translate all of this that Mark's describing to my environment? It's very different. Well, I'd ask you, if luck companies can make this values-based leadership work with a bunch of Fred Flintstones running around in hard hats, making little rocks out of big rocks, do you think it could work in a white-collar professional environment? Probably be a place where you'd think it would take root much more easily. It's a wonderful test case, really, of the ability to apply this focus on associates in an environment where you might least expect it. Or some of you might be saying, yeah, but they only have 850 associates, and we have 10,000. It's got to be much more challenging in an organization like ours. Well, before you dismiss that, so you have 10,000 people, you know what? You have 10,000-person teams. And the same lessons about building engagement and enablement and a focus on people and values and the right type of leadership can take root team by team, unit by unit within your organization. So yes, luck companies is a different kind of company. But I think there are lessons here that any organization, regardless of industry or size or sector, can take away meaningfully. So with that, we have just a couple of minutes, maybe a question or two if anyone has one.
I think there's a break after, too, if we want.
Okay. Yeah. This won't be your last opportunity. We'll be around today, so you can catch up with us in the exhibit hall or
there's
hallways. Yeah.
Yes. Charlie, you want to answer that? Can you yell loud enough? This is Charlie Luck, y'all, by the way.
To answer that by saying that, think about what's important to you and what do you value at your core. And I don't know about you all, but I'm married to my wife Lisa because we have the same values. Yeah, because my wife and I have the same values. We have different styles. So Mark and I had very different styles, right? He was this, you know, northern New Jersey, hardcore, you know, bruiser kind of guy. And I was a southern guy, right? Manners and all that. Okay?
Charlie.
But what do we have in common? What I saw in him was alignment from a values perspective, right? He believed in high performance. I believed in high performance. He came from powerlifting. I came from racing automobiles. He believed in hard work. He believed in high standards around treating people, although it showed up differently. He really did care about people, right? So I saw all these things, and I was like, man, if I can get a bridle on this guy, if I can get a saddle on him, you know, He's not the kind of person I have to push, right, and kick and try to motivate. He's already self-motivated. So it's a matter of, you know, really working with him. And as I've always said, you know, you have racehorses out there. And they've got to be fed, and they've got to be groomed, and they've got to be cared for. And that's what Mark was. You know, he was a stallion that needed guidance and support. And so that's what kept us together. So, yeah. And I would say to you, think about your leadership relative to who's in your house, and I literally mean that at home and at work, and how you show up for them. Thank you.